In the emerald embrace of California's ancient redwoods lies Oak Haven. A town of quiet isolation, where the towering trees whisper secrets to the wind. For decades, it existed largely off the grid, a haven for those seeking solitude. But beneath that veneer of tranquility, a far more sinister narrative began to unfold. A story told not in screams, but in chilling silences. A series of absences, stretching like shadows through the dense forest, slowly revealing a disturbing pattern that no one wanted to acknowledge. The forest keeps its counsel, but numbers, unlike trees, speak volumes. Our journey into Oak Haven's darkness begins in 2008, with the disappearance of Liam Fitzgerald. A backpacker, barely out of college, drawn by the allure of the wilderness. He was last seen near the town's edge, vibrant and full of life. Then, nothing. His car abandoned. His trail vanished. Authorities, stretched thin, quickly labeled it a probable runaway. A common narrative for a transient population. But what if it wasn't? What if Liam was merely the first note in a dissonant chord, a precursor to a larger, more unsettling symphony of silence? Just 2 years later, in 2010, the pattern deepened. Sarah Jenkins, a seasonal worker at a nearby lodge, simply failed to appear for her shift. Her belongings remained untouched in her small rental cabin. No note. No forwarding address. Another young life, evaporating into the vastness of the redwoods. Two seemingly unrelated cases, separated by time and circumstance, yet sharing a chilling commonality: complete and utter disappearance. Each instance a solitary incident, a tragic footnote, but the cumulative effect, it pointed to something more. A thread, unseen, began to weave itself through the fabric of Oak Haven. Between 2008 and 2018, 8 individuals, all non-residents aged 19 to 28, vanished from the Oak Haven area. 8. In a decade. For a town of approximately 1,200 permanent residents, this number is not just alarming, it's statistically anomalous. The national average for missing persons in similar rural communities, accounting for transient populations, hovers around 1 per 5 years. Oak Haven's rate? A jarring departure. A silent alarm, ringing unheard through the towering trees. These aren't random occurrences, these are data points sketching a disturbing picture. A critical demographic detail emerged: all 8 individuals shared a similar profile. Young adults. Drifters. Backpackers. Seasonal workers. None were established residents of Oak Haven. This wasn't a town preying on its own. This was a targeted vulnerability. People passing through, easily forgotten, with minimal ties to the community. Their disappearances, therefore, were less likely to trigger immediate, robust investigations. Easy to dismiss. Easy to overlook. And in the vast, unforgiving expanse of the redwoods, easy to disappear forever. A grim efficiency, perfected over a decade. While the victims were diverse in origin, a chilling geographic nexus emerged. Each individual was last definitively sighted within a 5-mile radius of the Whispering Pines Lodge. An aging, isolated retreat, deep in the redwoods, accessible by a winding, unpaved road. Its name evoked rustic charm, but its location, its history, and its reclusive owner would soon become central to our unsettling analysis. Was it merely coincidence? Or was the lodge more than just a stopping point for travelers? Could it be a gateway to something far darker? Oak Haven's economy, like many remote towns, struggled. Tourism was its lifeblood, but limited infrastructure meant little oversight. Cash transactions were common. Formal records, scarce. This economic reality created a fertile ground for unchecked activity. A town where the rhythm of life was slow, and where external scrutiny was minimal. An environment ripe for exploitation, especially when dealing with individuals who left no digital footprint. The ledger, both financial and social, was deliberately left incomplete, providing the perfect cover for a hidden narrative to unfold. To fully grasp Oak Haven's anomaly, we must compare it to towns of similar size and geographic isolation. Consider Cedar Creek, Oregon, a comparable community with a transient population and a similar reliance on nature tourism. Their 10-year missing persons rate for non-residents? 2, both quickly resolved as accidental. Then, there's Harmony Ridge, Montana, also secluded, also with a seasonal influx. 1 disappearance in 15 years, a confirmed runaway. Oak Haven's 8 isn't just a number. It's an indictment. A profound deviation from any statistical norm, screaming for deeper investigation. Why did this alarming pattern persist unchecked for so long? The answer lies partly with the local law enforcement. The Oak Haven Sheriff's Department, a skeleton crew of 3 officers, was chronically understaffed and underfunded. Each disappearance, initially treated as an isolated incident, was quickly classified. Lost hiker. Runaway. Drug-related departure. The resources simply weren't there for a prolonged, multi-case investigation. The systemic failure, whether through neglect or sheer incapacity, created a vacuum. A void where a calculated, insidious operation could flourish undisturbed. While authorities saw isolated incidents, some Oak Haven old-timers knew better. They spoke in hushed tones of the forest warden or the silent hunters, local legends dismissed as folklore. Yet, their tales, passed down through generations, described disappearances mirroring those of today. A quote from an unpublished local memoir by Agnes Periwinkle, a lifelong Oak Haven resident, speaks volumes. The forest takes what it wants, but sometimes, it is merely a hand, guided by darker wills. Was this merely superstition, or a collective memory of a truth too unsettling to face openly? A warning, unheeded. Compounding the mystery was the near-total absence of forensic evidence. No bodies. No crime scenes. Occasionally, personal items, a worn backpack, a distinctive hiking boot, would surface weeks or months later, often miles from where the victim was last seen. These finds, however, seemed placed. Almost staged. Too clean. Too convenient. They offered little in the way of clues, only deepening the enigma. It suggested not mere accidents or random acts, but a calculated effort to erase any trace, to divert attention, to ensure the trail went irrevocably cold. An expert-handed work. The sheer scale of the Redwood National Park area offered an almost perfect natural shield. Hundreds of thousands of acres of dense, unforgiving terrain. GPS signals are unreliable. Cell service, non-existent. Logging roads, long abandoned, snake through the wilderness, offering countless hidden pathways. It is a labyrinth. An unseen perimeter where secrets can be buried, literally and figuratively, with little fear of discovery. For an operation requiring absolute discretion, Oak Haven's surrounding landscape was not merely a backdrop, it was an accomplice. A silent, formidable guardian of concealed horrors. At the heart of our geographic anomaly, the Whispering Pines Lodge, stood its reclusive owner, Elias Thorne. A man as gnarled and unyielding as the ancient trees surrounding his property. Thorne inherited the lodge and vast tracts of forest land. He resisted all offers to sell, despite the lodge's apparent financial struggles. He was known for his distrust of outsiders, yet his lodge often hosted transient workers and backpackers. A paradox? Or a carefully cultivated facade? His control over the isolated property, a kingdom unto itself, raises profound questions about his involvement. Analysis of publicly available financial records for Whispering Pines Lodge reveals a curious discrepancy. While the lodge consistently reported razor-thin profit margins, Elias Thorne's personal assets and land holdings remained surprisingly robust. Revenue from lodge operations, barely enough to cover maintenance, simply didn't align with his refusal to sell or his apparent financial stability. Where was the additional capital coming from? This imbalance suggests a hidden income stream, an undeclared enterprise, operating under the guise of a struggling wilderness retreat. A ledger with a shadow column. What was being funded? The confluence of data points, when viewed holistically, begins to crystallize into a deeply troubling theory. Isolated location. Vulnerable, transient victims. Minimal law enforcement oversight. A reclusive figure controlling a suspicious central hub. The lack of bodies, the staged evidence. All these elements point away from random misfortune and towards deliberate, systematic action. Could these disappearances be linked to a coordinated effort to exploit the very demographic that was easiest to forget? A calculated use of Oakhaven's isolation to facilitate something illicit, something lethal? If these disappearances were not random, what was the motive? Simple murder for profit, or for a thrill, rarely maintains such a consistent, decade-long operational silence. The absence of bodies also complicates a common motive, preventing identification. What then was so valuable that it necessitated the complete erasure of 8 individuals? It had to be something intrinsically tied to the land, to the isolation, and something that generated significant, untraceable income. A secret enterprise, operating deep within Thorne's domain. A motive powerful enough to justify methodical elimination. The missing pieces of Oakhaven's puzzle begin to slot into place when considering the region's lesser-known illicit economies. The redwoods are not just home to ancient trees, but to rare, protected flora and fauna highly prized on the black market. Illegal logging. Poaching of endangered species. These activities demand vast, secluded tracts of land, minimal witnesses, and robust logistics. An operation of this scale, generating undisclosed millions, would perfectly explain Elias Thorne's hidden wealth and his resistance to selling the land. The disappearances, therefore, become grim evidence of a silent operation protecting its illicit harvest. The evidence, though circumstantial, paints a coherent picture. Liam Fitzgerald and Sarah Jenkins, along with the 6 others, likely stumbled upon or were inadvertently drawn into Elias Thorne's illicit empire. Perhaps they were witnesses to poaching activities. Perhaps they were recruited, then deemed liabilities. The lodge, a seemingly innocuous stopover, served as the initial point of contact, a funnel into a meticulously orchestrated web of crime. Their removal was not for malice, but for protection. A cold, calculated decision to preserve an operation that dwarfed the value of any single human life. The forest didn't take them, a shadow economy did. But Elias Thorne, alone, aging recluse, could not have orchestrated this entire system alone. The sheer scale, the decade-long impunity, the logistical sophistication, it points to a larger, more organized network. A consortium of individuals, perhaps involving corrupt local officials or powerful external benefactors, leveraging Oakhaven's isolation in Thorne's control. The silence of the forest was not merely natural, it was enforced. These weren't random acts, but the brutal enforcement of Omerta, protecting a sprawling black market operation that preyed not only on rare species but on human lives. An unseen hand, guiding the darker wills. Oakhaven's decade of disappearances is a chilling testament to how systemic oversight failures and the exploitation of vulnerable populations can create the perfect crucible for crime. Liam Fitzgerald, Sarah Jenkins, and the 6 others were not simply lost to the wilderness. They were erased, casualties of a lucrative, silent operation hidden in plain sight. The redwoods, ancient and silent, hold their secrets still, but the numbers, the patterns, the human cost, they tell a story far more insidious than local folklore. The forest remembers, and eventually, so too will the world. The silence, once a shield, now screams the truth.